I got something interesting for you guys today. I did a little bit of research. So, as most of you guys already know, President Trump got impeached for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress Wednesday, December 18th, 2019, almost 20 years after President Bill Clinton got impeached. This is interesting because there are a lot of historical congruencies between this impeachment and other historical scandals. On Friday, about 146 heavily redacted emails were introduced as part of the Freedom of Information Act. These are new emails regarding the Ukraine defense aid. It reveals a discussion by the White House office and the management of the budget and the Pentagon over the defense aid owed in quotation marks to the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. They were told to hold off on any obligations of these funds, pending direction from that process, from Mike Duffy, his political appointee serving as Associate Director for our National Security Program. This was the evidence needed to impeach President Trump through the House of Representatives. Apparently, concern was raised over the conversation between President Trump and Zelensky to investigate Hunter Biden. If this were true, President Trump would be guilty of abuse of power. The admin in charge of the management and budget was told to put the aid on hold for 1 week before the phone call. These funds were then released on September 11th. September 11th obviously being a significant date. It was the Democrats' plan to launch inquiries in lieu of the withheld aid to Ukraine. But Duffy refused to comply with the House subpoenas. His boss, Ross Fought, did not as well. So these two guys just did not comply with House subpoenas. But a Mark Sandy did comply. Even though the transcripts were released, Mark Sandy had conversations with an Elaine McCucker from the DOD to institute a temporary hold on the aid. After this, leadership was transferred from Sandy to Duffy. Leadership was transferred very early on in this process. Mark Sandy said he could not remember a time where his staff did not know the holdup of significant aid, and he actively fought against the hold. Mark Sandy was against the hold on the Ukraine aid because of the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. He was afraid that the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 made the hold on Ukraine aid illegal. The Impoundment Control Act of 1974 was originally in response to President Nixon because he refused to release funds to programs he opposed. That is another thing interesting in historical significance, because the act originally in response to President Nixon is being used against President Trump in order to impeach him. The Impoundment Control Act basically states the president may withhold funding up to 45 legislation session days. If it's not enacted within 45 days, the funds may be available for obligation. So the way I read it was that the president may withhold funding up to 45 days, given that he sent a message to Congress identifying why. And if it's not enacted within 45 days, funds have to be allocated. There's no way Ukraine did not know this or the Democrats did not know this. They have lawyers up the wazoo. They're trained for this, and there's no way he can withhold any funding illegally at all, and it's not really his decision to make. The OMB did not answer any subpoenas because there was no fraud to be made. The only person that did answer any subpoenas or testified was Mark Sandy, and we already concluded that Mark Sandy might have been disgruntled. It is interesting that they used the same law that was used against Nixon in order to impeach the president. They need to fill in the narrative that he's just as bad as Nixon. Democrats know that they're losing the narrative that Trump is bad guy and make him the evil guy. The narrative that the Democrats are trying to create is just ridiculous. They put the story out on Friday, right after the news cycle is ends. They want people not to look into this. They want everyone to talk about the impeachment throughout the vacation, even though they plan on not doing anything with the impeachment. Obviously, this helped galvanize support for the impeachment of the president, but in order to fully impeach the president, you need to get a 2/3 majority in the Senate, and the House of Representatives are stacked against. All you're seeing right now is bipartisan cuckolding. Watch us fuck over the American people. This was almost $391 million in weapons and security systems to Ukraine. And for a party so against war and the war machine, why do they care so much? Unless they actually are warmongering. It's very shallow, the narrative they're trying to create using impeachment. Most of them should know about the impoundment control. It makes it almost impossible for the president to do it. I read through most of the emails, the 146 emails, and you can see it in the emails. They didn't do anything illegal. They knew all of it. They knew about the 45 days that the president needed. In the emails, there are a bunch of things noted and highlighted and stuff, and there's a lot of redacted things. In the email copies that I read, the dates are all messed up. There's no timeline to these emails from June 19th all the way to October 1st. In these emails, it shows no evidence of illegal activity. It's not even implied illegal activity, really. It's just a series of emails are obviously between government officials talking about plans to allocate this money. I mean, that's their job. All these emails are irrelevant, right? And even the noted emails that they try to put notes on and highlight are 100% insignificant. It also shows that there was 45 days between the hold of Ukrainian defense aid and the allocation of resources. Even Mark Sandy knew ahead of time about the 45 days. This just all seems like a Democrat ploy to drum up opposition for Republicans, showing Trump as the bad guy, comparing him to President Nixon, comparing him to Bill Clinton. And like I said before, there is no way that the Democrats and the Ukrainian government did not know about the Impoundment Act of 1974. For instance, if the Ukrainian government knew about it, then they would know they would get their funds anyway. So they were in no juxtaposition to offer any information on Hunter Biden. There's no reason for the Ukrainian government to give information in lieu of aid. You can see right through the veil and how they're using media to push their own narrative. It's crazy. They just want to feel like they've done something. They want to be not labeled as the do-nothing Democrats, but evidently they still are.